Hello, everybody. Josh Neighbors here, Locked On Big 12 podcast. On today's show, my friend and yours, Robbie Triano. We've got some Big 12 hoops to talk about. We're going to give kind of our 2/3 of the way all Big 12 teams and dive in to some of those teams that those players are on. But first, today's show is brought to you by rockauto.com. For the best prices on car parts, go to rockauto.com today. All right, we'll get to some hoops here right after this quick intro.
Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Once again, hello everybody. Josh Neighbors here, Locked On Big 12 podcast. Joining us today, it is the one, the only Robbie Triano, my friend and yours, a producer at SiriusXM. He and I work together on Big 12 radio. Robbie, we got some basketball to talk about, but first things first. We do a Locked On Big 12 roundtable every Tuesday night, so we're going to dive into the Dave Aranda contract extension situation, but I want to let you give a couple thoughts on that first here. Your thoughts on Dave Aranda getting that extension that was rumored for a while, but now we finally got.
Yeah, you're right. This thing has been, happening, or the talks. Like, I hear Mac Rhodes all the time saying, like, we're working on it. And it's really important that it's finally happening. And I think for the new look Big 12, having Dave Aranda signed and sealed to be your head coach is huge when it comes to recruitment, when it comes to what exactly this new look conference is going to look like. And coming after, you win a New Year's Six Bowl, you win the Big 12, there is a lot of positive momentum for Dave Aranda. And I really think that Baylor, with him as their head coach, can be the best team in this league for a while. I think it's Cincinnati. I think it's Baylor. I think it's Oklahoma State. We can see if, BYU can get up there, but those are teams I really fully expect to be in the mix every single year. And I think this kind of proves that to be a fact.
Yeah, stability for Baylor. It's huge in kind of unstable times. But, we saw the correction that he made from 2020 and the way he got things going in 2021. And, it's funny to think about how the arc of what he is doing and what Brent Venables is doing at Oklahoma, it's pretty similar, right? Both were national championship winning defensive coordinators. Both became first-time head coaches. Both got really good offensive minds. At one, it took a little bit for Dave to get, Larry Fedora out. Then you get Jeff Grimes in. And also, at Oklahoma, you're seeing Jeff Lebby come in too. So kind of interesting. The first-time national championship winning coordinator becoming coach thing is playing out. And yeah, I think, it's interesting because it doesn't feel like Dave Aranda is one of these, it's not like a star type quality, right? It's more of like he's so steady. I feel like I know what I'm getting. I feel like I know what to expect. Even in the season where they were down, his demeanor doesn't really seem to change. I think that's good to have for Baylor.
Yeah. And I will say this, like, if I was a defensive player and I wanted to play in the Big 12, I would go to Baylor. I don't know if there's any other school I'd really want to go to right now. Gary Patterson's out of TCU. I don't think they're going to have as much of an emphasis. He is the best defensive mind when it comes to his in-game strategy. He is the most aggressive coach in this conference. He's very analytical based. And like, they won this year with Gary Bohannon as their quarterback.
Right.
Like, they won it by running the ball, having a good offensive line, and having amazing defense. Like, I love that they got Jackson Player from Tulsa, and I think that's going to be a trend down the future. Like, the reason the Big 12 can't compete with the SEC is because of what happens at the line of scrimmage. I think if I was a defensive player definitely on the defensive or offensive line, I would go to Baylor. I think that is the best way that they're going to set me up for success. I think Apu Ika, like, going from LSU to Baylor, that was an amazing move for his career. And I think when it comes to he goes into the NFL draft, he's going to be set up for success because he got to work with Dave Aranda. So I think it's like, Baylor, to me, I think has so much momentum. Like, we consider OU and Oklahoma the blue bloods. I consider Baylor to be like a new blood in the Big 12, and Dave Aranda is going to be that.
I agree. I think they're just so good at getting the most out of their players. I mean, I think it's not ironic. It's just hilarious, the fact that their best offensive player was a converted linebacker. Like, that's the most Baylor thing ever. It's like, we're all about defense and running the ball, so we converted the guy from defense to run the ball. I think that's pretty funny. But yeah, it's a great situation. All right, let's talk about some hoops. So kind of using the idea of like an all Big 12 basketball team to make our way through the teams of the Big 12 and kind of see where things are at. Now, first question to you is like, when you build an all conference team, are you somebody that does it based off the best players, or do you like to build your team essentially like an actual basketball team? Because last year, I think it was 4 guards and a 5 as the all Big 12 team, but the third team all Big 12 was just 5 guards. So do you build your team like an actual team, or do you build it based off the 5 best players?
I make 2 versions of it because one, I think for the first team, you have to give accolades. You have to give it to the people who one had the best stats and also just played on like had the best, you know, like season. Like for
Right.
me, Kevin Mcculler is a player that I don't think is going to make first team like all Big 12, but he is someone I want on my team because what he does, his ability to control that offense and like his defensive ability, like I would put him on the first team, but statistically, like you can't put him ahead of Taz Sherman. You can't put him ahead of like an Ochai Abaji. You can't put him ahead of a lot of people. So this is like a very tricky situation. So for me, I have created the Big 12 team that should win, and then I create the Big 12 team if I were a coach and I got to have a draft and take these players. That's who I'd want to pick.
All right, so the preseason all Big 12 team this year was Matthew Meyer, Ochai Abaji, Remy Martin, David McCormick, Marcus Carr, and TJ Shannon. One of those players is, in my opinion, is going to be on all Big 12 first team. I think there's an argument for McCormick to maybe be on the first team. I don't see that argument. I don't think that argument's good enough. I'm sure he'll be on the second or third team. Marcus Carr will maybe make a team. I don't know. TJ Shannon will not, but he's been injured. So it's you kind of give him a pass. Remy Martin, even if he was healthy, I don't think he would be. They haven't figured that out yet, how he meshes with this team. And Matthew Meyer has just really been disappointing this season. But I think with the injury to JTT, he's going to have a really excellent opportunity to step up and actually kind of right some of those wrongs. So let's start with like what this team should like look like this year. It starts with one guy. We all know the first guy it's going to be. It's going to be Ochai Abaji. And when I think about him this year, 20 points a game, 5 rebounds a game, 50-40, 4-73 are your shooting splits. Kansas is essentially playing with the same group they had last year, right? A really disappointing group last year when they got bounced, and I mean absolutely bounced by USC. There's thinking like, wow, this group is just, it had some potential, it felt like, but it just didn't mesh. I feel like basically everybody, maybe say David McCormick, has gotten better. Brown, Ochai, Jalen Wilson, DeJuan Harris for sure. All those guys have 110% gotten better. And really, number one guy has been Ochai Abaji. This was a guy that I've talked about this a bunch, but, he seemed like a 3-and-D guy, and it almost seemed more worth it for him to come out last year because we kind of knew what he would be in the NBA. Well, I was wrong. Everybody else was wrong. He's changed his game. He's a more viable option off the bounce. He makes the offense go. He's not just a passenger, I guess you could say. He's really helping drive the car for them.
Yeah, he was a player, I think, when I started covering the league in like 2018, 2019, like we all thought 3-and-D, he's going to the draft like very soon. And this is kind of a reminder why the college game, and especially staying at Kansas for this long, can help you. And the way Ochai has transformed himself has been incredible. And I definitely think there is no argument on who the Big 12 player of the year is. We wanted to, put something in, maybe James Akinjo can go in. And no, I think that Ochai Abaji has definitely curb stomped that. And the way that team is working right now, it's hard for the first team Big 12 to not include 2 Kansas players, but I'm trying to find a spot because if I were to find one, I think it would be Christian Brown, because I think what he's been able to do, he's also someone that has taken that step, and he's just so much more confident. Like, he used to be so tentative when he had the ball in the 3-point line. Now he's just a much more confident person, almost cocky to a point. So those are the 2 players that I feel like have to be on that team, but I don't know how to make it work in terms of basketball because this league, it is so guard driven. Like when I was trying to make this, there is not a dominant big in this entire league.
Nope.
I don't even think there's like I was looking at the stats, for rebounding. And Mark Smith leads the league for Kansas State with 8.5 rebounds. And second is Isaiah Brockington with 7.7 rebounds per game. They're both 6'4" guards.
Right.
That is like incredible that this league does not have a big like Doak or anything like that. And this league is very guard driven, and picking this team is like there's going to be a lot of hurt feelings here.
Yeah, so Oshai makes, like you said, the basketball coach team and the accolade team. He's on there. All right. The second guy for me, it's got to be on both, is Isaiah Brockington. To me, he's got to be on both because he is the only person who seems to be stepping up for that team. Tyrese Hunter's a pretty nice player, but he's a freshman. Kalsher is really kind of hit or miss sometimes for them. And so if their defense is not working and they're not getting a second guy involved, it's really kind of hopeless for them. But Brockington, 17 points, 7.7 boards, shooting 47% from the floor, 37 from three, and 82 from the line. He is efficient. He is being the best player in an offensive player in a team and being efficient, especially in college, can sometimes be very difficult. We see this all the time. He is both efficient and good, and a leading scorer. This is a team that is really taking on water very fast. But to me, it's not because Isaiah Brockington's play has changed, but they've got a big game tonight against TCU. So Brockington, for me, has got to be on this. He is the second player that I went to because of that rebounding aspect too, especially as a guard. That's why he's on this team for me.
Yeah, this one was really difficult for me. Him and Taz Sherman were the two that I have been fighting with because stats-wise, they're the best in the conference. Like Taz Sherman, I think if I were to pick my own team, he would be on that. But the thing that I have difficulty is like both of these teams have not been good lately, especially Iowa State. Like that team, like after this amazing start in non-conference play, as soon as conference play started, like they just went downhill. But that is a player that like they've had to rely on. So do I give him the credit because how well he's played, but also his team has been bad? So my number 2 pick was James Akinjo because I think like his success and how he plays determines Baylor's success. But Brockington and Sherman were 2 players I have been fighting with. I did put Brockington on my first team, but I felt really bad about leaving Taz Sherman out because he is by far West Virginia's best player. He is how they operate, and it's those two I think are the most valuable players in the league.
All right, so let's get to James Akinjo here in a second. First, quick word from our sponsors. Today's show is brought to you by betonline.ag. You guys go to betonline.net. If you go to betonline and betonline.net today, you guys can find football, basketball, baseball, hockey, boxing, UFC. They got Olympic odds as well if you want to bet on the curling, which I've been watching a lot of the curling. Good stuff. Tough loss for the Americans today against the Italians. Hopefully they can bounce back and make the playoffs. But you guys can go to betonline.net and bet on all of that stuff. You guys want to bet on the Russian skater who took drugs? I'm pretty sure you can probably do that. Actually, they might not let you, but you can do that there, I think, at BetOnline today. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. All right, so Akinjo's interesting. I do not have him on the list. It feels like a Baylor Bear should be on here, right? You kind of think about like they are a second place team. They're a top 10 team. They've been so consistent. The shooting numbers to me are bad. He's sub 40 on both field goals and 3 points. So that's going to ding you in my book. Now I am with you, but to some extent, like, yes, they do need to play well to be successful. But if you're asking me to pick the guard, so Brockington and Oshai are good to go. They're my locks. Stone cold. Every single any way you slice it, they're on there. Third and fourth guard is where I had a problem. I am between 3 players. I am between Sherman, I am between Christian Brown, and I am between James Akinjo and also Nigel Pack. So Akinjo gets bumped to actually the bottom of this list for me. I've got Pack as my third guard, as the number 3 guy. He can be inefficient at times, but generally speaking, he's been a good scorer, and also he has been carrying that load because Noel and Mark Smith, we've heard from Bruce Weber, they're not the most consistent players in the world all the time. It's not like every single game for them is great. And I think Mark is now hitting that stride where he is much more consistent from a points and a rebounds perspective. It feels like he's getting a double-double like every other night at this point in time. So they've got a bit more help. But really, like they generally speaking, need him to play well to win. Not in an Isaiah Brockington way. Last night, actually, Pack had a pretty bad evening shooting the ball. But generally, he's got to play well. He's edging 18 points a game, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, shooting 46 from the floor, 44 from 3, and 84 from the line. The numbers are good. The numbers are strong. The performances are pretty consistent at this point in time. So I'm going to go with Nigel Pack as my third guard.
It just makes me think, like, what if we just made a team of just 5 guards? Because I think
Right.
that's what, like, the Big 12, like, is this year. I don't think there's any, like, solid big person, but, like, it, like, sucks. It sucks that some people have to be left off of this. But with Baylor, like, with LJ Cryer out, I think if he was healthy for the rest of the year, he would be on that list. But just because we don't know where his health is at, like, he was their leading scorer, I think you have to give some of the credit to Akinjo there. That's why I have him on my list. Leads the league in assists. And I do believe if your team is one of the best, you have to have a player on that's somewhat of my criteria. Like, there has to be success through like success versus just stats. So I have to give James Akinjo the pass just because his shooting numbers aren't compared to the rest. But when it comes to his scoring, his points per game, and his assists, and where his team is at, like, I think that is, I think that's why I have him on that list. But I do feel bad for Nigel Pack because I did leave him out just because I think there's too much of a logjam. There's too much of a logjam for me with those players. There's just too many guards. I don't know how it would work as a team.
So my next kind of back and forth is Christian Brown against Taz Sherman. These two players, because Taz, how many guys can I put that are solo scorers in the team is my question, right? Like, how many of those guys do I feel good about? Because Robbie, last year, this was a bit easier because I'm gonna go. Let's see. Let's look at last year's All Big 12 basketball team. I looked at this actually a few minutes ago. It was much easier because a lot of these teams were they were winning teams, right? We had guards from winning teams that we could put. So last year, I'm trying to find the all. Let's see. It's find the all. From last year, but like Jared Butler was easily on there, right? We had a conversation. So Jared Butler, Mitchell, Reeves, Cunningham, Culver, all 5 of those teams were NCAA tournament teams, right? Well, if you go to these shore-in NCAA tournament teams this year, okay, yeah, you got Kansas, right? Texas Tech, like you mentioned, like they're the team that you said that they could easily win the conference. I'm with you. I also think like if I had to pick a Big 12 team to make the Final Four today, I'd pick them.
Mm-hmm.
But are you picking a player from that team to be on the All Big 12 team? I don't know about that. I don't know. And Baylor's the same way too. It's like, all right, the sum is great, but like the individual parts actually aren't producing at a level that is, we're accustomed to. So, and Cade Cunningham was pretty clear last year. Austin Reeves' numbers were sick last year.
Right.
Derek Culver was awesome. I think that I mentioned, Deuce McBride got left off the list. Like this year, if we have Deuce McBride, he's probably the player of the year in the conference. And that guy was the second team player last year. So this is a bit more difficult this year, but it's because we don't have as many winning players on winning teams, I guess you could say.
Right. And when I go to Texas Tech, I actually do have a player from Texas Tech.
You do?
The Big 12 team.
Bryson Williams?
It is Bryson Williams.
Yes,
because if I need a big, he has to be my player. I mean, like, and if I look at his stats, it's unbelievable. He's shooting 45.8% from 3 on the year. And like, it's not like he's just taken a couple. He's made 27 threes. I think his ability, he leads their team in scoring with 13.4. I think he is just like a dominant transfer that they got. And I think that is such a home run from Mark Adams coming from UTEP and then Fresno State. Like Bryson Williams, he is the only true big in the league I fully trust. I do not trust David McCormick in some games. Some games I forget he's even there. And even though he is the only dominant big, like in this conference, when it comes to like being in the post, I don't trust him. Tanner Groves, I had him in there, and I think he's creeping in there more and more. We talk about him a lot on our show. I think he's an awesome dude, but he's a player that I think is finally fine to start consistency, so he can make that list. But when it comes to Texas Tech, I think they were such a well-balanced team, but Bryson Williams is the one I would give that like first team nod to.
So when it comes to my big man, I am actually in the same place that you're in. I was between Groves and Bryson Williams. I originally put Bryson Williams down, but actually you've convinced me that, I put Groves down, and they're winning they're 14-11, but like they're still kind of a tournament team at this point. And to me, I think it's pretty clear. I think he's their best player. Would you agree?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. And so, who's Texas Tech's best player? Because I don't think it's Bryson Williams. I think it's Kevin McCullough.
Right. I would say Kevin McCullough when it comes to like on the field stuff, but right now, like for big man, I think he's been the best.
Yeah, I think it's between those two. I'm gonna stick with Groves. Actually, I'm gonna stick with Groves just to be different. To see a transfer coming from a place in Eastern Washington, he even talked to us about it too. The level of physicality in this league, and we had Jay Billis on one day, and he's talking about it's like they just let you fist fight. They're gonna let you they're just gonna ring the bell, and you can basically clothesline people in the paint. And I think Tanner has been pretty honest with us about it was an adjustment, right? I had to come in here and I had to start fighting. And actually, I thought that we knew that KU game was going to be a challenge the other day. And I think out of all the bigs that we saw, McCormick, Lightfoot, and Groves, I thought he was the best out of all of those guys. So I think with those performances kind of becoming more and more often, I'm gonna put him there. I'm really not. I'm not being nice to the winners. I'm not like rewarding winning in this way that I will. And that's crazy to think because I do feel really good about the way the Texas Tech's playing right now. But all right, so my five, to give you my five, I have Oshai, Brockington, Pack. I'm gonna go with Christian Brown as the fourth guard. I'm gonna reward winning in Kansas's case, and then I'm gonna go with Tanner Groves at my five, which makes it fun because there is some variety. And also it feels like there's about 3 or 4 spots in this team. Well, 3 spots in my opinion, probably 4 for you, that are actually still up for grabs. Like on the first team, all Big 12, there are legitimately 3 or 4 spots still up for grabs.
Yeah. Mine was Akinjo, Abaji, Brockington. I've been wrestling with this because like I want Christian Brown and I want Taz Sherman. Like we talked about that. And like in terms of a basketball team, if that 4 was rolled out, I think Brockington would somehow be shifted to that 4 spot.
Right.
So like, I think I have to give it to Christian Brown, even though like if I were to pick my own personal team, I think Taz Sherman would be on there just because like he's such a reliable scorer. But I'm going Christian Brown, and then I'm going Bryson Williams at my 5 spot. So 2 Kansas, 1 Baylor, 1 Tech. Yeah.
I'm sprinkling the board a little bit. Well, I got the 2 KU, but I got Kansas, I got Iowa State, I got Kansas State, I got Oklahoma. And so I've got
I just think you have to reward winning. Like I look at.
You're probably right. I mean, I'll probably end up not having the same team.
It's like an age-old debate. Like those are the best players. Like Tanner Groves is the best player. Nigel Pack is their best player. But like I feel weird. Like Russell Westbrook, if he didn't get a triple-double, there's no way he should have won the MVP because his team was like in 7th or 6th place. But like he was so great that he deserved that. So it's like it's a good debate, and I really think the media who is voting for this year is going to be put in a pretzel of like what to pick.
So let's talk about some of those teams at the top here. First, quick word from our sponsors. Today's show was brought to you by rockauto.com. For the best prices on parts for your car or truck, go to rockauto.com today. Why choose to spend up to 30, 50, or even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or a car dealership? For example, Honda Odyssey fuel pump is $353 from a chain store. It's only $216 at rockauto.com. Go to rockauto.com, see all the parts available today. Right, Locked On their How Did You Hear About Us box. That way they know we sent you. Amazing selection, always low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. That's rockauto.com. All right, so Robbie, let's talk about Baylor here a little bit because their title defense got off to a really hot start. And it feels like for them, the story is going to be they couldn't really see how far they could take the defense because injuries are keeping them from doing that. The LJ Cryer thing is weird, and it just seems like it's one of those nagging back injuries where you know how bad those can be. And then the JGT injury was just soul crushing.
It was disgusting.
It was a disgusting injury. And he is this athletic, amazing rim running 5 that lets you play small ball basically. And especially now that he can shoot threes, he is such a weapon because he can defend in the post and he can take a big man outside and is like kind of an ultimate quandary type player. If you're an opponent, things get a bit more challenging for them. And I just feel bad for them because, sure, you feel bad for a national title winning team, whatever, but they can never really make this title defense a full thing now because of the injuries, I think.
I agree with that. And it is really unfortunate. And I do have to give Baylor some credit because they lose 4 of their 5 starters, and the 5th starter they keep is Flo Thamba. And
Right.
he is a grip. He's a big body, but I don't think he is necessarily a fantastic player. I think he fits what they need there. And I think what Scott Drew has done has been amazing. There's been some things I've been incredibly disappointed about. And number one is Matthew Meyer. Before the year started, I had him as the Big 12 player of the year just because I loved what he was able to do. I love that, like, he has NBA potential. And the way you can do at that height, the way he can shoot, the way he can score, he's looked out of sorts. Like, he has not looked normal. There's games where he just doesn't score. And he's been a big disappointment. But I do think that, they have this young infusion, Kendall Brown, Jeremy Shohan. Like, this is like a really good team. And I think that this final stretch of the year is going to prove that for them. And I think that, can they be a national championship winner? I don't think they do. But I think that they're a team that can really find itself and make some noise, maybe Elite 8, Sweet 16, because they do have foundational pieces to be great. They have a good guard. They have a big who can defend other bigs. They do have good wing perimeter players. They just need to find it together because they do have a good foundation.
Speaking of finding it together, Kansas just seems like a team that can find it some nights and then just get dog walked on other nights. They're the best team in transition I've seen this year. And I think a lot of that has, Jalen Wilson had a really peculiar start to the season, right? There were a lot of questions about, like, all right, what do you do with Jalen Wilson now? Is he going to lose a spot in the rotation, right? Because of the incident, obviously, early in the season, DUI before the season starts. And you think about all these guys, Remy Martin, Jalen Coleman-Lands, Joseph Yesufu. All of these guys could come and potentially take minutes from him. And then, it seems like now Water's kind of finding its level. He's got some games where he can, in transition, honestly, he's like almost the point guard. And he's such a good athlete that he can just kind of make things happen. Reminds me actually a little bit of Cade Cunningham in certain spots, the way that he's able to move in transition. Is KU putting it together? Because if Kansas puts all of this together, they are the best team in the Big 12, in my opinion. I think it's pretty apparent when they do that.
No, I agree. Talent-wise, I think they are the best. And you hit it. Like, if we were to make my own personal team of players, like, Jalen Wilson, I think, would either find a spot or be my 6th man because he is so versatile. He can be your small ball 5. He can run your offense, especially in transition. I mentioned that to Holly Rowe last year. Like, I think Jalen Wilson has like NBA potential, and she's like, no way, no. And I think he 100% can. And that team can really mix and match and do some things. I do fear for their big though. David McCormick is a player when he is going. He is unstoppable, like very, very physical. He's huge. But if he's not playing well, if he gets in foul trouble, you have to rely on Mitch Lightfoot. Are you kidding me?
Right.
Like, in 5 years, he's going to be doing my taxes. Like, that's like, I don't understand. Like, he has that accountant tax.
He might be doing them next year. I think he might be. I'm not sure he can play basketball somewhere professionally.
He's a player I could see, like, Bill Self, like, all right, just be a GA. Like, just come be my, like, come work with us for a couple of years. Yeah. But that team, I think, like, I've been very strong on Texas Tech to win the Big 12. Like, I think that I'm swallowing that is probably not going to be the case because Kansas really has it all. Like, I did not like their point guard play to start the year, and then it just started getting so much better. And then Christian Brown is taking a step, and Ochai is just Ochai. And this team I really think could have national championship potential. That game against Kentucky, like, it was worrisome. It was like, whoa,
right.
This is strange, especially in Allen Fieldhouse. But that's a team that I really think can make a late push if some things go their way because they have the talent and they can mix and match. Like, there's teams in this conference, if they faced a big in the tournament, they're toast. And I think that's a team that can actually somewhat compete with something like that.
Finally, your Texas Tech Red Raiders. So one condition for them to go deep in the tournament, and I mean Final Four national championship deep, is they need TJ Shannon to be healthy. I think they can go to like an Elite Eight if he's not 100%. I don't think they make Final Four. I don't think they win a title. But I will say this. In terms of like quality of play and like knowing how high the highest level is for them, like I feel pretty good about Texas Tech. That Oklahoma game to me felt like more of an outlier than anything, just because they're basically now, and you can compare whatever school each way. They're basically our Midwest Florida State, right? Leonard Hamilton builds his team off of some talented players, but just massive human beings who are long and are athletic. Texas Tech is massive. They are aggressive. They are long. They're athletic. They cause problems. The big key is on neutral courts, can they keep that rolling consecutive games? I think I actually would feel pretty good, Robbie. It's a team that, because of the way they play, it feels like they're going to be in every single game that they're going to be in, which is pretty good for a tournament setting.
No, I totally agree. And like, you beat Kansas, you beat Baylor on the road. Like,
yeah,
this team has proved it. And I think if any team in the tournament plays them, like, they're going to have difficulty just because their length can disrupt anything. They are extremely well coached, and it's just an incredible team. And it's all led by Kevin Mcculler, who is my favorite player watching in the Big 12. The leadership that he has on that team, the way he runs everything. Like, he's not a point guard, but like when it comes to the late game situation, he is setting everything up. His defense has been phenomenal, and it's just like a really good foundational group that they have there. I love Kevin O'Banner. I love Terrence Shannon. Bryson Williams, obviously, like, has been so clutch for them. And just watching them play defense, like, they're a gritty group. And that's a team that I think could, make up for their lack of like super height because of how like long that they are. So that's a team I am like rooting for at the end of the year. And they actually do have a good stretch of games. They obviously play Baylor on Wednesday, which is huge, but they play it in their own arena. And we've seen what they can do. Like, oh my God.
They don't lose there. They don't lose at home.
Chris Beard is like still having nightmares about like what exactly happened that week. And then they end the season. They go to Baylor, or they play Baylor. Then they go to Texas, and then they end with 4 games that I think is confident wins for them, even though some of these teams are very desperate. Oklahoma, at TCU, home at Kansas State, and then at Oklahoma State. Like, those are good teams, but those are not the best teams in the conference. They're like the bottom 5 teams. So this is a good stretch for them, and that's a team I just love what Mark Adams has done this year.
I did too. The culture he's put in. I mean, it's, we talked to Jeff Haxton a while ago, and he was like, it's his team, it's his culture now. And it's totally right. Yeah. All right, Robbie, where can people find you and find the show that you produce and contribute to every day?
Big 12 today on Sirius XM channel 375. Take your mom's credit card. Go buy yourself a subscription. Josh Neighbors is on there as well. We have a fun time there. And if you like crazy takes, go to @the_Triano Kid, and if you're an Oklahoma fan, you'll probably hate me.
You'll love Robbie's Twitter.
Yeah,
you'll absolutely love it. All right, Robbie, appreciate you. I'll see you at about an hour and a half.
All right, see you then, man.